guys, welcome back to Mini Urban Farm, and I know it's a little bit late, but Happy New Year. We are in February and this is my second video of the year. We are doing our 2023 goals, or 2023 recap, and 2024 goals. I'm working on very little sleep these days. Of course, you can see we have our new baby with us, and we are going to recap everything that we did or didn't accomplish last year. I love doing these videos because I like watching them myself, right? I like watching other creators and other people who are doing gardening and farming and all of that, you know, talk about the projects they want to do so I can add things to my list. But I also want to hear, like, if they didn't manage to accomplish something, why not? And, you know, what got in the way and how can I take away from that and do better also. So without further ado, I am going to jump inside, put this one down for her nap. That's not on me, and we're gonna recap everything and go over our goals for 2024. Welcome to the inside of our house for the very first time. We are in the formal living room, all right, so what we call the great room. This is where people just hang out when we have company over, that sort of thing. So super excited to be filming in here for the very first time. Now, this year we did get a lot accomplished. There were some things that I didn't get done that I wanted to, and I'll share those with you guys. However, if you guys are just interested in what we're doing this year and you don't want to hear the recap of where we what we accomplished and where we went last year, then I will leave the timestamp somewhere here so you can jump ahead. But let's get into it. I have some notes here on my phone. The first thing that we wanted to do, one of our goals for 2023, was to continue growing half of our own vegetables. So last year I gardened in a small garden. All right, I think it was no more than 100 square feet after I added in additional garden beds, but we started out at, I think, 60 square feet. And that was at my family's house. We created a small garden and the goal was always to do half our own vegetables there. Now, I will say we partially met this one. We definitely did very well when it came to growing all of our own herbs. We did not have to buy herbs the entire year. And then most of our vegetables, right, on that half scale. So we didn't get to 100%, but we got to half our own vegetables, mainly in the form of green beans and tomatoes and salad greens, right? So we ate a lot of what we had on hand, but I will mark this one as partially met because there was a lot going on and I did want to do a lot of other things, grow a lot of other things in the garden last year that I didn't get to grow, mainly because I was pregnant and sick for a good portion of the time. And then of course we had some other issues with family going on as well, some health issues. But we did partially meet this one and fully met on the herb portion. Now, the second thing was to establish a new garden here at our property. We did not meet that one at all. In fact, we didn't even move in to this house until November of 2023, at which point I was 9 months pregnant, about to give birth. So there was not a chance that we were going to establish a new garden. We were hoping to do that before we moved into the house, at least to get the garden space up and running. But the way that the house came out, there was a lot of other stuff that we had to do for the county regulations, and one of which was to build a mitigation pond. And so that was the space that we're going to use for the garden. We're still trying to work around how we are going to plan out that space for a garden, even with the mitigation pond in place. So that is on the list for this year. But unfortunately, that was a complete fail for last year. In 2023, we did not establish a new garden bed. Now, we did, however, increase the food forest guilds, right? So we have, it's about 7,000 square feet of food forest on this property, basically just a plot of land, right? A smaller piece of land on this property that we have designated for our fruit trees. If you've never heard of a food forest, it's basically a forest, right? You're mimicking the natural forest, except you're replacing all of the trees in the natural forest with fruit trees that you want to eat, and berry bushes and shrubs and, you know, things that produce food and or medicine or other things that benefit the entire system. And eventually, right, the goal is to have it be self-sufficient and you don't really have to come in and take care of it as much. You just go in and harvest from it, and, you know, that's kind of like the long-term goal of the system, right, to mimic the garden that would occur in nature, to mimic a forest. So we planted a whole bunch of other things this year. We did do a blackberry row, which was super exciting. It was not in the original plan. However, I showed up at the garden center, the nursery, and they had blackberry plants. And I said, you know what, let's buy 12 of them. So out of the blue, we bought 12 blackberry plants and put in a trellis and all of that. We did actually get some blackberries last year. We shared a lot of them with the deer though. So this year, one of the things that we did do is fence in the property, right? Or last year, we fenced in the property. Right before the house was done, we fenced in the entire 2 acres that we have. And basically that, like the food forest portion is on the corner. And so we have most of a fence around the food forest. And that does prevent the deer from getting in. Not 100%, but another thing that we did was plant inadvertently. I didn't do it on purpose. I planted tons of marigolds, right? I planted originally 1 marigold plant and then it self-seeded and I just let it be and I kind of scattered the seeds everywhere that they fell. And so I've heard that marigold keep out deer and that seems to be working pretty well also because everything that was covered in marigolds around the fruit trees has not really gotten bothered by the deer after that happened. So that was a big one. We also finished the guild around the orange tree. I haven't really filled it with the things that go underneath, right? Like the other layers of the food forest. Right now it has the orange tree. We did put sweet potato in before we had the fence. So the deer shared a lot of those with us, as well as far as the green tops of the sweet potato, which did not allow us to have that many actual tubers, sweet potatoes underground. And then also we put in a whole bunch more things in the pomegranate guild that we have. So we got a lot accomplished as far as the food forest goes this year. My goal is to do all of the guilds in the food forest. I want to have every single guild wrapped up by the end of this year. So we'll see how that goes. Another thing that we did last year was continue on with our meat chickens. So if you guys have been following this channel, we raise chickens for meat and eggs. I want to say shortly after we got chickens for eggs, we started actually butchering chickens for meat as well. So that's kind of just been the journey. It's not like we never did meat. We've always done chickens for meat, except we do a heritage breed. We use Plymouth Barred Rock chickens instead of the like meat chickens that you find at the hatchery. So we continued to, incubate our own eggs and get meat chickens. Now, I only did 1 round of meat chickens this year, even though the plan was 2 rounds. Usually we do 2 rounds of chickens, 2 rounds of chickens for meat every year, but we only did 1 batch because Alan convinced me, and I will say I'm glad he did, not to do another batch when I was pregnant. And I'm glad that worked out that way. I'm glad he managed to convince me out of that. So we did, I think it was between 20 and 30 chickens for meat. So we are going to continue on that next year as well, but we definitely met that one. I also added in a whole bunch of new colored egg layers. So we get blue and green and white eggs now. Definitely, that was just ordering from the hatchery and making sure they didn't die. But they are out there with our existing flock. And now we have nice little rainbow eggs. So we definitely met that one. And continuing on with the chicken theme, we built a whole new chicken coop this year. That was on our goal list. And I gotta say, I wasn't expecting to meet this one. But when the county came back and said that we needed to move the chicken coop and put a mitigation pond right where the chicken coop was, we tried to move the coop. And the minute we started pulling it with the truck, despite putting wheels on it and all that stuff, the entire thing just caved in and we decided we discovered that wasn't going to be a possibility anymore. So we had to, first of all, leave that in place for a little bit and then redesign and build a whole new chicken coop. I will link that video below. I did film and kind of like talk you through how we built it and the thought process behind that and, some of the footage. So I will leave that link in the description if you guys want to watch how we build the chicken coop and all of the features that we put into it, because I will say it is a pretty complete chicken coop, right? We have tons of things that allow me to not go out to check on the chickens every single day if I don't want to. They're pretty self-sustaining at this point, and most of what I do is just go and collect eggs. So check that video out below if you want to watch it. And another thing that we did in 2023 was to add a whole new animal. All right. So if you guys follow this channel, you know that we added bees last year in 2023, which was so much fun. I have learned a ton about beekeeping, including the fact that it is extraordinarily difficult to keep bees. We were originally considering 3 animals, bees, ducks, and rabbits, and we decided to go with bees. And I will say it's a pretty steep learning curve. It is pretty expensive to start. There's a lot that can go wrong and does go wrong quite often, and it is a lot more time consuming than I would have imagined, because you do have to upkeep like checking on the hives even in the middle of summer when I was pregnant and that sort of thing. So we haven't gotten any honey yet, but hopefully this year we will. It's definitely a lot harder than chickens. So I will be making some videos hopefully this year on my beekeeping journey. Definitely not an expert by any means, considering we have not gotten any honey yet. But that is definitely one that I plan on keeping and figuring out this year as we go along. Now, switching gears from the animals, let's talk about the landscaping projects that we had planned out for this year. So part of the house build, right, was landscaping, right? Like you need curb appeal, you need plants outside of the house, all of that. At the time, right, when we started designing the house, I thought we were going to go for a very Mediterranean kind of look. I was planning a whole bunch of rosemary bushes in the front and on the sides and that sort of thing. So I did start a whole bunch of rosemary plants. And then we decided to switch gears to more like tropical kind of vibe in the front of the house. And we had a whole bunch of snake plants and aloe vera plants that we decided to use for the front of the house. I did not end up using all of them for the front of the house. I used them along the sides, and I did plant a whole bunch in the forest garden, and I actually gave away a lot of them and sold some of them. So I used what I wanted to for the front of the house, and I'm planning on putting some ferns also, which I'm going to dig up from the other areas of the property because we have tons of ferns, and put them in the front of the house as well. So I will put that one as partially met because my goal was to have all the landscaping done, and that is definitely not the case. We have a pretty nice area of landscaping done, and I'm really happy with it for right now, but I'll leave that one as partially met for this year. One that we failed at though was growing mushrooms. All right, and so I say we, but it's really me. Alan has no interest in growing mushrooms at all. For the last several years now, I say that I want to grow mushrooms, and I still do want to grow mushrooms, but it always ends up being one of those things that I push off to the end of the year and it never happens. So I will probably take it off the table for this year just because it hasn't worked out the past several years that I've been doing this. But if it happens, it happens, and I would love to plant some like wine cap mushrooms or something in the food forest. However, it is not my priority, and that's just something that I did not get to. And unfortunately, we have no mushrooms for this year. But we do have a whole new house, all right? So we moved into this house, like I said, the end of last year, November-ish. I think it was the middle of November when we actually finished the house and were able to move in. And we were able to enjoy the house for about a month before the baby was born. So I will definitely I'm definitely thankful for that. And we just got the tail end of the year. We were really concerned that we were not going to be able to move in last year. In fact, we were really concerned up until the very end that some of the things weren't going to work out. And there are still some things that we are trying to sort out with the builder and some final punch list items that are being wrapped up here and there. But we were able to move in and close on the house and all of that stuff. So that one we definitely met. And then for the last one of 2023 that we did not meet was to reach 100,000 subscribers on this channel. Now we got somewhere along the lines of, I think it's 50,000. But of course, if you're watching this video and if you watch our videos, subscribe. I will be forever grateful. But we did not meet the 100,000. And it was mostly because I wasn't really posting any videos. I posted a handful of videos. And that was pretty much it. We had so much going on with project managing the house, which I was not planned on having to do, having hired a builder, but we ended up doing a lot of the project management ourselves for the house. And then I was pregnant and not feeling very well for a good portion of that time. And then my dad did have some pretty severe issues that we were taking care of throughout all of last year. Thankfully now everything is working itself out and he's, doing much better, and we have our baby and we moved into the house and all of that. So this year hopefully will look very different, but that is, I think, the main reason that we didn't reach that goal of expanding this community. But if you are not subscribed and you like this video and all of our videos, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, on to our goals of 2024. All right, so I will keep these pretty straightforward because I did touch on some of them in the things that we accomplished and didn't accomplish in 2023. But the first of which is to have our garden. We have our forest garden, but I want a kitchen garden, my annual garden where I can grow tomatoes and annual things and, you know, things that you just rotate out on a regular basis. All of my vegetables, which are not in the food forest. So that is the goal. That being said, I don't know when that is going to happen this year, hopefully sooner rather than later, but we have to figure out what we're doing with that mitigation pond. It's a dry pond on the side of the house, but it does flood when it rains, right? Because it catches all the water. So we're going to have to figure out if we move the garden or if we put it in that space or how to just work around that. That being said, I'm thinking that by the end of this year, maybe for fall, I'm in Central Florida, zone 9B. So we don't do tons of summer gardening, right? Because it's like in the 90s or more, right? All the time. So we do a lot of spring gardening, which would be now. And I have started some seeds to add to the food forest. A lot of like perennial plants and, you know, flowers and those kind of things are going to go in the food forest guilds. But I haven't started anything for the kitchen garden because we don't have a kitchen garden yet. So hopefully by fall season, right? That is my goal, to be able to plant for the fall garden season here in Florida, which would be probably the beginning of September or so. That is the target. Now, that being said, the second thing as far as like gardening would be to finish the food forest. I won't say finished because I don't think that we're going to completely be done with that ever. I think that we're going to just keep adding more plants as we find more things to put in. But the goal this year is to get all of our fruit trees in, all of our like bushes established, a fence line, right? I would like to do a living fence around the entire food forest and garden, which I've already started propagating moringa trees out for. So I'm hoping that that's going to be a really good living fence for around the edible area. And then I want to get in like everything that goes under the fruit trees. And obviously we'll continue adding as the season changes and some things, you know, die out and whatever. But I want to get all of our guilds in place so that we have the whole layout established by the end of this year. So as far as animals go, my goal this year is to add in 2 new animals to the homestead, right? We added in bees last year. We are keeping our bees. I would love to be able to harvest honey, which is like a subsection of this goal. But we are going to be adding in rabbits and we're going to be adding in ducks, all right? Mainly, I want the rabbits for compost, all right? Because, I mean, yes, we want them for meat as well. But I would love to be able to have rabbit manure. And it is a cold compost, so it can go directly into the garden, into the food forest, and not have to worry about the entire composting process, which I love creating compost and kitchen, you know, scraps going to compost and all of that. I love creating compost. However, if we had rabbits, they produce a lot of fertilizer and it's a lot simpler and it's much faster. So we'll be adding in rabbits and hopefully at some point in time later this year, also harvesting meat from those rabbits for ourselves, for the dog, right? But we're going to start with the fertilizer first. And then we are also adding in ducks. Now we're going to get some Muscovy ducks, mainly because Muscovy ducks are more self-sufficient than anything like a Peking duck. We don't have to incubate the eggs, right? While I love incubating eggs, it is a pain to do that. And you have to like make sure that the temperature is just right. And I think duck eggs, I've heard that duck eggs are much harder to incubate than chicken eggs. So Muscovy ducks actually hatch out their own ducklings, and you just kind of repeat that process all the time. And then you can just harvest meat as the ducklings grow up. Also, Muscovy ducks are supposed to be ridiculously good for mosquitoes, which is something that we struggle with a lot out here. We're in the city, right? We're in the suburbs, but we are in a very forested area. And there are a lot of mosquitoes, especially when the sun starts going down. It is like a mosquito haven out here, despite the fact that there's really no standing water nearby. Oh, Emmy's starting to wake up. So we will be using our Muscovy ducks as mosquito control and meat. Likely we're not going to use them for eggs just because we have the chicken eggs, and I'm not the biggest fan of duck eggs. So yeah, that is going to be our mosquito and pest control solution, hopefully for 2024. Now, on the lines of animals, we're also continuing with meat chickens this year. We have, done so for the past several years, and we're going to continue on with our meat chickens. this year and probably the next several years as well. Now, when it comes to the house, right? So we moved into our house last year, at the end of last year, and we pretty much have a blank canvas, right? You can see like the kitchen is not quite decorated. We have to add in some backsplash. And in front of me, it's pretty much just like bare blank walls. So we will be adding in a ton of decoration and doing a lot of house projects this year. Some that we're hiring out for, and some that I think actually a lot that we're probably doing ourselves. We'll have to see with this one now in the picture how feasible that is. But we are going to be, I'm hoping to share all of that with you guys. I would love to be able to do some house projects and show you guys how we are not renovating, but like decorating and transforming this like bare blank walls slate of a house into something that is very styled and decorated. So that is another goal I have this year, to film some of those projects and share that with you. Our last goal for 2024 is to reach 100,000 subscribers. That being said, if you guys watch this channel, if you like the videos, don't forget to like and subscribe, right? Because it does really help the channel out to grow. And I would love to expand this community to share with a lot more people. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to go feed her before she keeps banging her head against me for food. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.